Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment, gentlemen and ladies and folks. As you know, I love this part of the program because I get an opportunity to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive, their time. 24 hours has been given to every one of us. How you use time will let me know much about you. And Riana is coming here to spend some of this expensive stuff with us. And I want to honor her and thank her for coming. And she decided, that's the powerful thing, to be here for your benefit and for mine. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator, and it has created her. And we cannot wait to get to know her because that journey deposited a couple of things in her that we want access to. Wisdom, knowledge, insight, foresights, all these wonderful things. Why? Because it'll assist you and I to become better human spirits while we are here on this planet. We want to welcome you to Threads of Enlightenment. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ken, for having me. I really appreciate it. Happy to be here.
It's an honor. As I mentioned to you, I usually ask this question on the onset of the program: how do you serve mankind? And I try to include my audience in this because I want them to realize that the journey is not about just oneself. It is about all of us. We go through the first part of the journey, which is the self-development, and then we have the interdependent part of the journey, and that is our life, how we life and interact with each other. So how do you serve mankind?
Well, I've been teaching mindset for success since my early 20s and spiritual messaging, teaching people self-love, to believe in themselves and their gifts that they've been given by God. Lately, I would say in the past 25 years, I've been specializing in healing both childhood and love relationship trauma. That one seems to hold people back a lot in life. If you had a bad first or second relationship, so many people get stuck and can't move forward. Their anger is keeping them back, or self-loathing because it didn't work out. And that's a shame because trauma can be healed and you move forward and you can have the life you desire and the love that you deserve. So that's my job, to help them heal and move forward and find their dreams, set their goals, and reach them.
That is excellent. I love it. I try to educate people that trauma is just an unprocessed emotion that we have stored in there. An incident happened and we just collect it, and we don't even know that it's there in many cases until someone brings it to our attention. And when we see it, then we are able to process it and remove it from our space.
I always say you can't change what you don't know or understand. So a lot of people would say, well, I didn't have childhood trauma, but the research shows 100% of us had childhood trauma. So I actually created in 2012 the childhood trauma checklist, which is a real simple checklist for my clients to go through to recognize if they had any of these experiences. And trauma from childhood is nothing to be ashamed of or feel guilty about. We are just the products of our environment. As children, we don't have any power to move out and move on. We are just there experiencing what is handed to us, right? But as adults, we have that ability to change and heal it, which is...
Yeah, the first phase of that trauma, once we are traumatized, I tell people, is the survival mode phase. And usually when it happens as a child, we don't know how to handle that. So we just have to learn how to survive. And we usually do until that day when it comes to say, it's showtime. So one of our customs
children usually handle it by two ways: internalizing and externalizing. So an internalizer will be someone that journals all day or does cutting, self-mutilation in private. That's an internalizer. An externalizer is that bad kid who acts out or runs away from home or starts drinking and partying with his friends, everyone can see their anger and upset. The internalizer handles it in quiet. And I was a trauma counselor in the schools also, from grades kindergarten all the way through college at every level. And, you know, a lot of the teachers would say, oh, well, you have all the bad kids. And I said, no, I have kids who went through bad experiences.
Yeah.
No kids are bad kids, right? So it's teaching them that what they went through is trauma and was not their fault, and they can change it. So at every level, when you're teaching mindset for success, that's part of my system, and the spiritual concepts that go along with that. Healing can happen at any age.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it, man. One of our customs here is to go back, and we usually start in those, I call spaces that we reside for a short time. And each one of those space, if you will, we have encounters with programmers. The first space that we visit is the family. And the family unit, we have mom and dad, both traumatized by whatever trauma they have, and they both perceive the world from different lenses, if you will. And these two individuals will begin to deposit data, information, beliefs, all of these wonderful things within you and I. Within that household, we have a couple of things also. The family programming is depending on what kind of culture you're in, cultural program. We have religion that is also mixed within that space of there. What was your family like?
Interesting. Well, once I did my research on trauma, I could easily see where my traumas were. Some were very obvious. Within my family, I was fourth out of five, born between my two brothers. So it was sister, sister, brother, me, brother. And my mommy actually said, I'm really upset you weren't my other boy, because I wanted two girls and two boys, and I have to go back and try again.
Wow,
That's a message of saying, hey, you know, you're a mistake, you weren't wanted.
yeah.
I was a very shy child, being fourth born. My brothers were super athletes in water polo and swimming, and I was just okay. I was more of an internalizer. I journaled. I wrote poems. Here's an example. I won Who's Who of American high school students in English. By that time, I had probably 50 poems published in major books and was writing for newspaper and so forth. And everyone, you know, I got straight A's in English. And I was so happy to finally go home and tell my mom, look, I won this award. I'm the only student in high school that you only get one, you know, to give to a student. And then she said, well, why would they give it to you? So that's an example of I was that absent child, the little lost child, they call that in psychology. I didn't blame my brothers. I was very close to my brothers. It wasn't their fault that my mom idolized them. And then on my father's side, we did not know that he was FBI and CIA until he was sick with cancer. And we got letters from President Reagan and William Casey, head of the CIA, FBI at that time, thanking my father for his many years of service. So I'm there. Okay, that's where dad was. So dad was absent all the time, but he was a very loving man and very kind and gentle with people. He would say hi to every stranger. And, you know, I often hear you're your father's daughter, you know, so that gentleness, that loving kindness I got from my dad. And he died early in my life. I was only 28 when he passed away. So that was a big loss for me. But I also was a holder of a family secret, knowing that he had an affair. My brother and I knew, and we couldn't tell anyone because it would have broken up the family. So there's all kinds of things that are there. And then outside of school, I was bullied. You know, I was gawky and skinny and wore big glasses. And so that was my experience at the schools. I just wanted to get out of high school. And then I started modeling. I won a modeling scholarship by writing why I wanted to be a model. And my writing got me out of that family in a way that I could escape into the modeling world. And I was working for a top radio station in Philadelphia where I'd work with all the entertainers. And one of my favorite gigs, so to speak, was to dance the entire encore the night of the opera concert with Queen and Freddie Mercury. Well, you know, and Joe Frazier was a good friend of ours. We'd hang out with him a lot. So here I'm a teenager mingling with entertainers. And that was just the coolest and best job ever. And that's what got me out of my shell, the modeling and needing to go
Yeah.
up and promote and talk to strangers. But I love that. And today I'm very confident in going into any room and being able to make friends or talk to people. So, your tough experiences lend you to somewhere else. Yeah. So where my major childhood trauma, I would call it, was when my best friend was killed by a drunk driver. And we were 16. And I thought, well, Michael will live, and he didn't. And that was my first death experience. And I said to my mom, like, I'm really struggling handling this. I think I need to see a counselor. And she goes, no one in this family will ever go see a counselor. So I said,
Wow.
well, then I will grow up and become one. So there I defined my journey, and I turned to books. So I read the Dalai Lama, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, and the Course of Miracles philosophy. All the masters of the time, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, there's a lot of them. But that's
Yeah.
how I got my healing and started learning about mindset and spirituality. Church was not a good place for me. I was bullied there. So I didn't like organized church, but I liked the little chapel that was from the 1800s. I go up there and sit by myself and talk to God. So I wanted this relationship, but I didn't like the organized religion because we didn't go every Sunday. So if we did a religious test, I'd always fail. And then I was teased and laughed at. So I'm like, this is not a happy place, But my personal journey with God was always good.
Yeah, the church can be one of the most brutal places you'll ever visit on this planet.
Yeah.
I know much about that. Here's this young woman that has gone through much. I love the fact that you made that statement to your mom. And I always mention this to people that we have our conscious mind and we make decisions consciously all day long. And then there are moments when we make subconscious decisions because of a situation. And when that individual, that subconscious mind makes that decision, or she, I didn't want to go, let me go she, because I may get in trouble with gender, but I'm trying to say you. That individual inside, I believe, is, and we've heard this talk about before in different spaces and psychologists, that we are energy and energetic. I believe that when that individual makes a decision, that people say the universe or God conspires now to bring to pass what that individual says. And that individual will implement plans to make that a reality. And things began to happen all of a sudden, they say. This synchronicity begins to follow and create what was said. That's why I always try to invite people to learn to tap into the subconscious mind and make decisions from there. Because when a decision is made from there, everything becomes real. It manifests really quickly. So here you are. I mean, you're all over the place. You got famous stars, you had all these different things, and this trauma that happened with your friend propelled you, after your mom made that comment, propelled you to seek wisdom. As you began to pull from all of these sages of the time and you began to become acquainted, if you will, with mindsets and stuff like that, what tools did you bring into your life to begin to assist you to begin to heal from your traumas that you had as a young woman?
Well, back then, we didn't even know the term childhood trauma. I mean, even in 1997 through years 2000, when I was in for my triple master's in psychology, they did not use the term childhood trauma. Yeah, so I married someone. I went to Penn State. I had a second trauma where my best friend and college roommate of 3 years was murdered by her boyfriend. So for Michael, now I took his soul into my soul and said, I will help heal in Michael's name. So I became a drug and alcohol counselor in later life, not because I had a problem, because I thought there was a problem in the world.
Yeah.
And then second, with Corinne, I was helping people through domestic violence. And I still do that today. I help men and women, straight and LGBTQ, singles and couples, to heal from any kind of love trauma. I just started calling it love trauma because that's what it really was, not an official scientific term, and I didn't care. It's like, I know what love trauma was. And then I married my college sweetheart who ended up frauding my mother out of $200,000. Now, back then, that was quite a lot of money, like $500,000 today. And then he got us into trouble by running a business into the ground. By the age of 26, I had 2 little girls and a bankruptcy of $750,000. All I knew was I needed to be free. If I could be free, then I could rebuild my life from there without the encumbrances. But I told my mom I would pay her back. So that took me 16 years of my life, usually working about 5 jobs most of my adult life as a single mom with no support anywhere. Of course, I paid the child support. He did not. So it was not an easy life that I have. Some people look at me now. It's like, oh, you're a coach and a therapist. That must have been so easy for you. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. But I didn't focus on the hard part, because if I focused on that, I'd be stuck in my past. Right. Yeah. And this is what people come to me for. They're stuck in the pain. They're stuck in the past, and that's not going to serve you. So you have to bring your minds up into the now and say, what can I do right now to help me propel? So when I was living in Erie, Pennsylvania, they was told, okay, you're the mother, you pick up your children at 3:00. I'm like, well, where can I get a 9-to-5 job? They're like, I don't know, you'll figure it out. So I said, I'll open up a model and talent agency in school. I can leave by 2:30, lock the door. No one's going to tell me I can't. And I opened up with a first month's rent. I couldn't get a loan because of a bankruptcy. And I just used mindset and goal setting to get what I wanted. Within 6 months, I went to the International Model and Talent Association and competed for Model and Talent School of the Year. I won educational excellence. And within the year, there was a competition again in July in New York, and there's one in LA in the wintertime. So the first one I got educational excellence, but by July, I won Model and Talent School of the Year. So when I opened up my office, I went from 4 people in my first class to 25 people in a waiting list within a year. And within 2 years after that, I was able to buy my first home for my girls and I. And then with another 3 years, I bought a second property for my school and redid the whole interior. And so I actually was owner of 2 properties by the age of 32. So it was always, what can I do? I loved working with people, and I was teaching mindset. That's why I said I'm a teacher of mindset for 40 years. I've been teaching models, actors, singers, and dancers to go for their dreams in this little small town of Erie. And they competed in New York, LA, and then they go off to other world locations, depending what they wanted to do. So I had one girl who was a dancer. She goes, I want to be a rockette. I said, well, then let's make you a rockette. And she ended up, as a dancer in New York. I had another man that was an auto mechanic, and he said, I want to be a model. I'm like, well, you're really a big bodybuilder type, blonde hair, blue eyes, big white smile. I said, you're better for Baywatch. This was a big TV show back in the day with lifeguards on the beach in California. He goes, oh my God, that's my dream show. I'm there, let's get you on Baywatch. And he ends up on Baywatch. So it was what we call the watch me attitude, where people put you down and doubt you and say you're not good enough. It was like, believe in yourself and you can do what you dream to do. You just learn the system of mindset for success, do the goal setting, and get rid of the negative. Don't keep dragging that along with you. Those fears, those doubts, the negative voice in your head. You have to get rid of that subconscious and make you totally consciously aware of your goals and dreams and go for them each day. And it adds up to what you want in life. So that's,
I hope
work with people.
I hope that I try to invite people to switch when they're listening to the podcast, because we start by listening, and the listening is done by the natural man. We have a grouping of ears on these little things on our head, but there's an individual that is inside of you, and that is your subconscious being, and he hears. When he hears stuff, it becomes a reality. And so here you have this powerful individual that is laying out to you guys the way by which you can create your world. And because you were listening, some of you missed it. She said she went into the mindset, the mind to begin to create the world that she wanted. That's the key. And she talked about people stuck in the past. There are three locations that we reside in. One, the past, the now, and the future. Now, when you look into the past, what do you get there? You have shame, you have regrets, you have all of these different things that sit back there because you regretted you didn't do this, I didn't do that, and all the different things. Now, when you look into the future, you you get depressed, you get fearful, you get all kinds of crazy things that hangs out there waiting for you.
I usually
But you
say
will miss it.
depression lies in your past and anxiety lies in your
Lies
future.
in your future. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm
you,
worried. Where am I going to do? How am I going to do
yeah,
this? How am I going to do that? That's the anxiety part of the future. If
yeah,
you're worried.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's up in the future. But where you belong and where you need to live on a daily basis is in the present. It's now. And when you live now, you will begin to create. You have to learn what to do while you're living in the now. And here's an individual that knows what to do when you're in the now to create the future that you want. And you guys need to pay attention. So I invite you guys to come and hear what she has to say from here on out. So here you are. You started creating everything, you showing and teaching individuals how to pursue their desired outcome, what they want. As you are doing this to others and so forth, what more, how were you feeling? Because here you became a pretty much a standard bearer in the field of mind management and stuff like that from studying those sages that you read for many years. What started to happen to you? How did you manage all of this good stuff?
Well, I love my work. So I was really enjoying working with my models, actors, singers, dancers. I
Yeah.
was bringing up two little girls who I wanted them to be smart and independent and believe in themselves and their dreams. My one daughter, Lexi Panos, is now a global top coach. And at 5 years old, she's sitting and watching the TV, and the Save the Children commercial from Africa comes on. She goes, Mom, I'm going to go save those kids one day. And I'm like,
Wow.
honey, I believe you will. That's a beautiful dream. And she ended up at 15 wanting to be a singer. And since I was a talent agent at that time, I'm in my master's for psychology, not thinking about talent at all. And I said, okay, I'll help you. But you got to do your part. We have to start reading about the singing business. It's the time of Britney Spears and,
Yeah.
a lot of the young pop artists. But the world aligned. I ended up meeting one of the top artists of the day down in Miami South Beach when I was out with a friend, a mutual friend of ours, and mailed them the demo kit, and she gets picked up. They go on world tour. She sings on 3 multi-platinum CDs. While she's touring, she goes through Africa. And that dream came back to her. I want to help these people. I want to help the kids. And now they have 31 water wells in Tanzania, Africa, her and her best friend, Tennille. So, from that implant of I believe in you and I believe in your dreams, you can do whatever you want to do. She just, whatever she wanted, she kept bringing it into her world. And I keep saying, I wish I grew up with that mindset work because my girls got it since the age of babies.
Yeah.
Right. Not from the one side, not from their father, but from me. And my other daughter is quite successful as well, been on CNN and addressed Congress, runs the Florida Freedom to Read Project, trying to fight for our rights to read whatever we choose. So, she's there. I need to do something for my 2 children, my 2 grandsons, and, fight this. This is not right that they're banning books and, pulling classics off the shelves or changing the wording of culture that is not being true,
Yeah.
and so she's heading that, you know what I mean? So whatever they decide to do, they're able to do it and they do it well. And that's mindset work. So whenever I'm teaching one of my clients, I always ask, do you have children? Because if you do what you learn, I want you to start teaching them. And then they will grow up to be successful kids. And they were out of my home at 19 on their own. I mean, mindset is critical to raise successful children. And that's why I enjoyed working in the schools. I would take kids who were angry or upset or bullies and teach them to think another way, to be a leader, right?
Yeah.
So that was all really important work, and I love doing it. And now I'm watching 6 grandchildren of mine grow up with mindset work because my daughters had it when they were young. So it works, and you can learn mindset at any stage of life. I mean, my oldest clients are 80 years old, and they finally came to get healing in their past childhood and love trauma. And, they've been carrying that baggage their whole life. It's never too late, but I always say do it earlier, do it sooner than later. Yeah. Why wait? To feel fantastic about yourself and the life that you.
Yeah, some people are only ready when they're ready. And I think Jesus had made a statement. He says, those who have ears, let them hear. And there's a responsibility on the hearer to do something. And so people can be around things forever and ever, and it doesn't resonate until it's time. And then it resonates. And if that's 80 or 90, get there, because I worked in a skilled nursing facility, and this is one of the reasons why I was passionate about getting this podcast, along with some other things that happened, up and running, was because I saw a lot of those folks that never got a chance to know who they were. They just believed the program all the way through, and they were in their bed on their, transitioning to the next dimension. And I would have these conversations with them. And the regrets that they all said was they wish they had followed their heart, as they say. I wish I had done that, and wish I had did
Not
this.
that I wish I worked harder or longer.
Yeah, exactly.
That never comes out.
Yeah, it was just always they, and so when I saw that, I recognized and, understood that there are many people that haven't had the opportunity or haven't taken the opportunity to get to know who they are. And as you said, when I went through my journey, everything I learned, I deposited into my children because I wanted them to become mindset aware and understand the process of that. So you had to go through all your trauma and crazy stuff so that you can now change the trajectory of your entire generation and your line, your lineage. So yeah, sometimes that's what we have to do. And there's always one, I believe, that is being chosen within a family to change that trajectory of the family and the DNA, if you will. And that DNA meaning whether it's in the mind or physical or however, but one individual, I believe, always have that opportunity. And it was you. So you had to go through all of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to my nephew yesterday, and the nieces and nephews of my family are very, very successful, as are my daughters. So it's nice to see that because childhood trauma does go through at least 3 generations. That's part of the research. And, I remember asking my mom, why don't you ever tell us kids you love us with the words? And she goes, well, I do. And I said, yeah, but kids need to hear it. And of your 5 kids, I'm the one that's first having your grandchild. Back then, we didn't know the sex of kids, but I said, I'm having your grandchild, and I would like you to be able to look at that baby and say, I love you, And I said, so didn't you hear that growing up? She goes, no, I was part of the Great Depression. And if we had food on the table, that was love. There was no time for emotion, and I looked at my grandmother, and she was a very hard and tough woman. And once I said, well, Mom, I'm sorry you didn't get to hear the words, but I will tell them to you. And maybe one day you'll tell them to me and my brothers and sisters and your grandbabies, And she did. And she became a lot more emotional and loving as she got older. She was almost given the permission, you can relax and not be so tough, and hard and driven. All of us kids, us Milne kids, grew up very much workaholics because that's what we taught. If we work hard, we'll get love. That was the messaging we heard. Mm-hmm. So I have to be very consciously aware about, I call them balance triangles in my life. work hard, play hard, and personal time. And then I have time with my partner and myself, and then family and friends, so you have to have the balances. And I say to my clients, anxiety, once you learn this system, becomes your friend. It will tell you, hey, something's out of balance. What you need to change right now? Have you forgotten to exercise, or, are you not going out and having friendship time? You're just working all the time. So anxiety is a messenger now that tells us
Yeah,
what we are in need of.
absolutely. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the physical part of your existence, because mindset training has to do with the wholeness of you, the entire you. You have to
Mhm.
learn to go and exercise. You have to learn to do things that you love to do, and so that you can reward yourself. You have to be grateful, learn about gratitude, all these different tools, meditation, journaling, affirmation, mantras. I mean, there's so many different tools out there that you can utilize, because what those tools afford you to do, most of them, especially like meditation, saved me, was
I love
I
it.
learned
Yeah.
how to take control of the thought fields that just laying out with all kinds of, you know, mind, fields, as they say. And so I had to learn how to manage that. And so now those thoughts are not coming by the hundreds of millions anymore. I'm able to they're coming much slower. I'm able to choose. I know which is what. I'm aware of different things. Awareness is another
Exactly.
thing that one needs. You need to do this every day. That's why I said you need to be present. So here you are. You talked about it, and you have been exposed to mindset training and programming and reprogramming for a mighty long time. Bring to us now some of your insights, because I know you have those that you have developed as you had the opportunity to work with so many. You have crystallized, if you will, your process, because as you mentioned, you were your first client. You
Yeah.
had it walk right through, back and forth with you. And then you began to use what you saw was effective on you, on others. Introduce us to some of those tools. I don't want you to give them all the stuff, girl. We gotta whet their appetite, so that when we send them to you, we want them to get the wholeness of it. But invite us to some of those tools, that are processes that you had developed.
Sure. Well, one is a lesson from my father, and he calls it the lesson of the 5 Ds back then. Since he taught me them, I have put in more, but it's the 8 Ds for success. So whatever you choose to do, you have to decide what that's going to be first. And you really have to do some soul searching. What am I good at and what do I love? And, if you're shy and you don't want to be around people, then maybe do computer work. If you love people, then you're going to have to do something that interacts with people. I usually say, choose something that gives you purpose, serving the earth, humans, or animals. Something, one of those three around that choice. So decide what it is. That's first. Second is desire it. You got to desire it more than anything else. That means you say no to other things or other opportunities. I remember when I was writing my book, Love Beyond Your Dreams, I wrote a 400-page book from idea in my mind to my sample book in 6 months. And our goal setting is, you do a lofty goal in 6 months. And I was also moving from New Jersey to Florida. It's like that book has to be done, because once I get there, I'm starting a new practice all over again from 0 people. So the book has to be done. And I did it within 6 months. I was just so happy to show up in Florida, and there's a sample book sitting against the door, So decide. And I remember people calling, well, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm writing. Still, why do you write? Come on out and party, come dance. And it's like, I'd love to, but I'm going to write this weekend. So you have to really, desire it more than anything. Determination is, I'm going to write this book in 6 months. Nothing's going to deter me. Dedication to the process. It's not always easy. You're going to have bumps in the roads, but you're still dedicated. Devotion is a spiritual piece, having faith in yourself. And I always say, God's got my back. It was full of purpose. And, that devotion piece of faith that I can do it is huge. And as my dad always said, dare to dream and dream big, baby, So I wanted it to be a number one bestseller. And when the sample came in, I also had the sister book already written called Live Beyond Your Dreams, which is about the mindset for success. And Love Beyond Your Dreams is about, well, it says break free of toxic relationships to have the love you deserve. And that, went to the number one Amazon bestseller in 5 different areas. So I took the 2 books and I put them on the Barnes and Noble bookshelf and took a picture of it because I wanted to be in that bookstore since I was a kid writing poems. And I put it on my bureau as like, here's my dream. And it ended up in Barnes and Noble. Dare to dream, dream big. Where do you want that book? And drive is when things get tough. A lot of 12, 14-hour days, and that's drive. You work till exhaustion to finish your project, your goal. And then the discipline also to do it when things get tough and just saying, I believe in my goal, my dream, and I'm going to make this happen. And 13 books later, I'm still writing. I'm still a writer. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton, for encouraging me to write and giving me that award because someone believed in me. And that was like the first start. So, believe in your children, believe in your friends, expect the best from them. I read someone, if you tell a kid they're bad, they will, perform to that expectation. They're going to be bad because that's what you believe they are. So, I was always feeding my children encouraging messages and telling them how proud I was. So those types of things. There's a chart, the yin yang chart that I teach. I was looking for it here in the papers because I have a whole bunch of things to talk about. But in the light paisley, this is where we always strive to be, living in the light, I call it. That's where joy and peace and love and purpose and friendship and passion and everything that makes you happy is living in the light. The dark paisley is anything that's dark in your life, anxiety, depression, stress, rumination about a relationship. That means over and over your mind. What did I do wrong? Why did he leave me? Why did he cheat on me? That's rumination. We got to get rid of that. Murder, rape, anything that's dark and ugly and does not serve us is living in the dark side. And the facts are 8 out of 10 people have 8 out of 10 negative thoughts. So we got to get your mind out of the dark side. Now there's a little white dot in that dark paisley that reminds you at any time you can go through that tunnel and come into the light. And how do you do that? Using mindset tools. So I teach a lot of different mindset tools. And the black dot in the white paisley reminds us that challenges are part of the expectation of living in the Earth School. The Earth School is a concept from Buddhism. So we are here to learn many lessons. That's why they call it the Earth School. And challenges are normal, and challenges help us to grow. So when there's a challenge, most people say, why me? Why does this always happen to me? And they get angry and they're in that stuck position. We, on the other side, say, oh, well, that's interesting. What can I do? Well, I could do plan A, plan B, or plan C. And a good example of this is when COVID was here in America. And it's like, all right, you're 30 days locked down. Well, you saw everyone panicked and upset, and I can't do this, I can't do that. I'm like, what can I do? That gives me time to write a couple more books. So I wrote one on anxiety and one on what is happiness. So I got those 2 projects done because I had 30 days of not going out to like I would normally would on a weekend. So I use that as writing weekends, right? So it's the mindset of how we think and what we choose to do. And when that becomes solid in what can I do versus I can't do, then the world is really opened up to you. So living in the light is educated on mindset. Living in the dark, they are not educated on mindset. So there's, all these contrasts of what it means to live in the light, live in the dark. So that's a big lesson for us. And then we do all the mindset tools to ensure that they're there. When I teach on conscious choices, sometimes I use rhymes or poems or symbols to help my clients to remember. So one is this. Okay, if you have a choice to make, stop for a moment and think, is this good for me, the woman or the man? Is this good for the one I love? In other words, is this choice going to hurt your partner anyway? Then obviously that's a no. Okay, is it going to hurt my children or my extended family in any way? Will it hurt my reputation on the job or in the community? So any of these, if this is a yes, you stop, you don't do it. And the last one is if in doubt, go without. Writing it, texting it, saying it, doing it. So, and I say, if you're not sure of a choice, put it into your meditation. All of our people meditate 15 minutes every day. And then take another day or two to run those choices then again. So that's another thing that we use that is always conscious in our mind. So those are just a couple of things that I teach.
That is, I love it. I remember my kids,
Simple,
I would tell them, simplicity is perfect. That's what we need, simplicity, because if it's too complicated, they get tired and distracted and they're not focused.
Also concrete, like what is it I can do? Oh, okay, I can do that. That's simple. And then they memorized it and they got it. Is this going to hurt me in any way?
Yeah, I used to tell my kids when a situation comes, your decision has a lifespan and you have a few seconds to decide. And I would always tell them the very same thing: breathe. Take that little breath, because I tell them the breath is the bridge between the natural and the supernatural. Go within, because you have a few seconds to decide. And that decision, is it going to affect me just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes? You make decisions that will affect you for, an hour, 2 hours. Then there are those that will affect you for the rest of your life. So you have a few seconds to understand what is what. And so I told them, I said, your decisions, you have to learn to be very careful. And as I would say to them, my terminology was, if it feels wrong, it is wrong. And so I would have them tap into that. If it feels wrong, don't try to talk yourself out of it. It is what it is. And your subconscious being, your spirit, your soul, man, knows the answer, and he's trying to warn you until you don't make that decision. And that's the time you walk away from that. So, that's what happens to us mindful people when we go through our journey. We started coming up with all these little things. So here you are, you're at a juncture of your life. You have achieved much. You have taught. You've been a, and those that are serving and those that are in this space, we kind of start developing some antennas, if you will. And we began to sense things, changes that are coming, and we see things. Because when you're in a meditative state, you're collecting data from around you, from the other dimension. Psychologists call that the quantum field. Christians will call that the heavenly places. You're getting data. What is it you're sensing? As you had mentioned that you have all your people meditate for 15 minutes, which is a beautiful practice to start their day. What is it you're sensing within the ethos, if you will, of the coming changes? We are ending 24 shortly, heading into 25. What is it you're sensing in? And the disturbance is good. I always tell people disturbance is good, because it's telling you that you're not there yet and you need to be aware of certain things. What is it you're sensing in your being as an individual that has been in this space for such a long time?
For me, yes, I've been serving a long time. I'm about to celebrate my 67th birthday. So I recently have an incredible love in my life. We just celebrated our first anniversary over the weekend.
Congratulations.
We're looking for a beautiful home together. We're starting to travel together. And everything in my being is saying more balance to make it my turn. My turn to enjoy life, not work so hard. My girls are doing a wonderful, I have great friends here in South Florida. I'm doing more cruising, with Chris, and we're really starting to enjoy our life. And that's everything in my power, saying work less, still serve, but also serve myself at this point, because that's where I wanted to be at this stage of my life, attract a very emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious partner, wonderful man. And now together as a couple, we've become very strong, and people are really enjoying our love and our relationship. It was funny. We were out Saturday night and we go into a dance club. I was one of the original disco queens. I love dancing, still do. And Friday night we went to a club and, they said, well, it's college night. I said, I'm okay with that. I still love the music. So we come in and I'm starting to dance and about 9 college girls come up and it's like, oh my God, I love your energy. And you look so pretty. I said, oh, we're out celebrating our anniversary. Like, oh, that's so nice. And like, you're so cool. I want to be you when I grow up. And I'm like, you can be whatever you want to be, at any age. I said, I'm going to be 67. They're like, no way. And I'm like, age is a state of mind. Age is energy. So here I am on the dance floor teaching. So wherever I go, I find these teaching moments. But when your energy is light and happiness and joy, people are attracted to that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of negativity going on in our world, spearheaded by health organizations, number one, with the whole COVID shots and all that, and second, by politics. And we were at an Earth, Wind, and Fire in Chicago concert Saturday night, and everyone's just singing and dancing. I'm like, this is joy. This is why the 70s was so good, because we had all this incredible music and people just loved everybody else. So it's sad for me at this stage of my life to see what's going on in our world, all this anger and wars. I'm like, wars now? People can't talk their issues through. It's mind-boggling that we've gone back to all these wars, and it's very upsetting to me. And I'm like, then my daughter's fighting for the freedom to read whatever book you choose, and also, for a culture not to be changed in our African American authors who are saying this is how it was, and they want to change those books. And she's fighting for that, and LGBTQ rights, and she's a straight female. She's doing what she feels is her purpose in the world. So we can look at all this and do nothing. Or like my daughter Stefana says, I have to do something. And she's spearheading this in Florida and been on, like I said, CNN News and addressed Congress already. And it's not just a wish. She's taking small actions, which led up to huge actions, and her model has become one of the top national models to follow for other states. So it's, when you believe in yourself and you have a purpose and you know what is right and you're living consciously, you can't just ignore it, but anywhere you can be a teaching moment. And it's really cool. Like I call us a family. Everyone I've trained, my coaching clients, I've been doing this 25 years, right? So I've seen people grow up, get married, have children, see their weddings, and it's really great. But they see people suffering from childhood and love trauma too. And they're like, you know what? This is what's happening. And you can change this. I was like you once, thinking nobody loves me, but now I have a wonderful husband and a family I wanted. You can do it too. So our motto is help change the way the world loves. That's our motto in our company. Everyone that's affiliated with our company, even if they're just on my email list, like they say, hey, Riana, like I'm having a friend that's going through a hard time. I know she needs what you do, and I'm going to send her to you, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it just starts with one person, right? And it just resonates out. And any moment in time could be a teaching moment. So I recognize that. And Chris is super cool and spiritual. And he goes, wow, this happens all the time to you. You walk in a room, it's like, and he goes, but I love to see it happen. And I said, but look, we're walking in as a couple. And the men are talking to you about, you being a man in a relationship that's spiritually based. And we always find teaching opportunities. So it's really pretty cool.
There is a point I tell people to find your purpose and your gift. And there is a point when you're in your gifts, if you will, you found it, you're existing, where it transitions, where you use your gift. And then it transitions to your gifts begin to use you. And that's when you start walking into areas like a disco play. And
as the old lady, oh, you don't want to be here. It's college. I'm like, no, I'm cool. I like young people. I'm good with it. I don't care. It's music.
the gift is designed to use us at some point. And because we are able to use it, but once it begins to use us, it's out of our control. We just have to go with it because it knows the need is there. And I always tell people this. And I believe that's why you came on here, Rihanna, because someone demanded your help, your wisdom, your knowledge. And that's why you're here at Threads of Enlightenment. I don't believe anything happened with it's already been designed. I believe God is a proactive God. He's not a reactive God.
Right.
He had already done everything, and then so he's not surprised. And so you and I are just fulfilling our part within the whole thing. And I think someone made a demand. You're here. God saw that you are that individual. He brought you onto the show so that you can reach that individual. And all of you guys that have been listening to it, I am going to provide everything for you to have access to her. She's been in this arena, if you will, for a long time. And what resides within her is much wisdom, much knowledge, insight, and so forth. She has teams of people that she has already affected. Her input on the planet is stamped through hundreds of people already being affected by her. And so I want you to be also to be affected by her. And so I'm going to provide all of her information, her links, and so forth, so you can reach her, because all of you that are in pain, that want to understand the process of how to utilize your mind to obtain what you want, that's what Threads of Enlightenment is all about. You can do it. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how young you are. You can do it. And I have a guide that is here to help you to get there. I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment and sharing.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Ken. I love the saying too, there's no mistakes in the spiritual world, right? So we were meant to meet and connect and help teach others. And I'm hoping that one small thing I said today would encourage someone and give them hope and happiness today. And life is too short, I mean, you got to go for your goals and your dreams now and do whatever you can to start sharing your light in the world just by extending a hand or a smile, because it does reach people when you least expect it. I'm out dancing, smiling, and boom, my college girl. So, you never know where your joy is impacting others, and it is energy and it is contagious. So just go out and do your thing by sharing your own light, right? And I always say today is the time to create the life you desire and have the love you deserve. Don't wait.
100%, I agree, and I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.